Math is a wonderful thing. Math is a really cool thing. So get off your act, let's do some math. Math, 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 math.
All right, so today we're going to talk about, in this video, we're going to talk about the quadratic formula. I'm going to do a little intro, like what is it even about, what's it used for, and then I'll give you two examples, okay? One with like negative coefficients and one with positive coefficients. That way there's like no question on what things need to look like. And this is actually very, very simple, the formula. Well, it won't look simple, but that's all right. You will get it. I suggest, not really suggest, but it's necessary that you memorize this formula, okay? There's like a little quadratic formula song. You can YouTube it. I'm not going to sing it for you because I don't feel like it. What is the quadratic formula even used for? Well, it's used for solving quadratic equations that maybe aren't factorable, that maybe aren't, you can't solve them any other way. So the quadratic formula is as followed. So you're going to have something like ax squared plus bx plus c. All right, and you're going to be able to find the solution to this. What? How do I do that? All right, so here's the formula. X equals. X always equals. You're going to get an answer. Okay, this will work on any quadratic formula, any quadratic equation at all. So no matter what quadratic equation is given to you, you can use the quadratic formula to solve for it. All right, so this is really important. So it's going to be negative b plus and minus, plus or minus, the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. So, I'm not done. Sorry. All divided by, all of it, all divided by 2a. All right, so that is pretty intense. And a lot of times people get really afraid of the quadratic formula because of how, long it is. It is a pretty long formula, but it's not that bad. So I'm going to give you kind of like a strategy on how to solve it. So I highly suggest this part that's underneath the radical sign, which is called the discriminant. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a whole nother video. You don't really have to worry about that right now. Okay, so this, I would do that first. That's going to end up being one number. You notice this is A, this is B, and that's C. Those are the same, A, B, and C's here. And this negative sign is really important when solving. Let's do an example. All right, here's our very first example. Example 1, we're going to solve for x. So 3x minus 9x squared plus 10 is equal to 0. Your very first thing that you need to make sure that you do is that this right here is in standard form. Right now, this is not in standard form. Standard form would say negative 9x squared plus 3x plus 10 is equal to 0. Okay, remember standard form is biggest exponent to smallest exponent, and you go from there. Okay, so now our next step. We need to figure out what A and B and C are. So A is negative 9. B is 3. And C is 10. right? Because I got that from that positive 10, this positive 3, and that negative 9. Okay, that's your second step. Your third step is to actually write the quadratic formula with all the letters. Don't put any numbers in yet. I don't care how annoying it is. Do it. That's how you memorize it. So, x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Now we're going to plug in what we know. I suggest you use parentheses whenever you can, especially when it comes to the negative stuff. It is very helpful just in making sure that, you know, you didn't like miss a negative sign or anything. Okay. So all I did here was I replaced my letters with parentheses, and we're going to fill in what we know. So negative b will be as 3, so negative 3. Obviously, that's not going to change, but if b was negative 3, a negative 3 would turn into a positive 3. This is b squared, so 3 squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. Okay, so what I would do first, I would figure out what's underneath the square root. Okay, because that's going to be the most, like the trickiest part. So that's 3 squared minus 4 times negative 9 times 10, order of operations. So go ahead and pause the video, see if you get the same thing that I get. Okay, let's try this again. So 3 squared is 9. All right. Negative 4 times negative 9 times a positive 10 is going to end up with a positive number. Negative 4 times negative 9. Okay, the reason that I mess up with my negatives a lot, so I always say that this 4 is negative when I'm multiplying. Because it's a minus, so it means it's negative. So 4 times 9 is 36. 36 times 10 is 360. And that is 369. All right, so what I'm gonna do is replace all that's underneath that square root with the square root of 369. All divided by 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. All right, so I'm looking at my answer choices, and that answer choice is not on there. It's not because we did something wrong, it's because it's not simplified all the way. Sorry, I'm gonna erase this. If you need it, go back and pause and write it down. Okay, so sometimes, well, 3 over 18, that can simplify, right? So, you know, that can be 1 over 6. But what we also need to do is see if the square root of 369 can reduce. I'm gonna do it in a different color for us. How about blue? We're gonna do the buddy system. Okay, the buddy system. Remember, there's a lot of different ways to figure out what goes in it. We're gonna break it down. Okay, so I'm gonna say 9 and 41. The reason I just did that on my calculator, I knew it was divisible by 9, I just didn't know by how much. And how I knew it was divisible by 9, you add up the digits. 3 plus 6 is 9, 9 plus 9 is 18. So this number, and 18 is divisible by 9, so 369 is divisible by 9. 9 can break down to 3 and 3. 41 is prime. Nothing goes into 41. Here are my buddies. If you need to get a refresher on reducing square roots, you might need to do that. Remember, the buddies get to go out and play. Leftovers stay in the house. So what I'm going to do is, in my problem, replace square root of 369 with 3 square root of 41. Okay, now I look here and, oh, my answer's still not there. That's so frustrating. Okay, well, we need to simplify these fractions. Okay, there's really 2 fractions going on. Okay, we've got negative 3 over negative 18, and then plus or minus 3 square root of 41 over negative 18. Okay, you don't have to split them up like this, but it might help you in the future. Like if you're not the best at reducing fractions, then I would go ahead and split them up. 3 over -18 is 1 over 6. Okay, and that's the same here. 1 over, this is still -6. All right, and because these aren't the same, it's really, this has to be a negative, so that 1 has to stay negative. So my answer here is -1 plus or minus the square root of 41 divided by -6. Technically, a negative over negative is positive. Doesn't really matter. But this is what x equals. Okay, that's my answer. There's no way to solve that problem in any other form except for the quadratic formula. Okay, second and final example. Sorry if this video is a little long. Okay, but these are just kind of longer problems, so you'll be all right. Okay, we have to solve for x. -6x minus 1 plus 5x squared is equal to 8x squared. Well, my first step is to get everything on the same side and then write it in standard form. Okay, well, standard form says x squareds go first, so I have 5x squared minus 8x squared, which is -3x squared. Minus 6x minus 1 is equal to 0 because those cancel out. Now I need to identify A, B, and C. I will do these in colors for you guys. A is -3. A is always with the x squared. B is -6. And then C is -1. Okay, we got a bunch of negative numbers here. Remember, write the formula. X is equal to -b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. And I'm going to replace my numbers, or excuse me, my letters with the actual numbers. All right, so pause the video, see if you can put them in the right spot. Let's see. -3 is going to go here and here. -6 is here and right there. And then -1 goes there. All right, so this is what we got. Now, I am still going to simplify this stuff first. This is my discriminant, not discriminate, discriminant. Okay, but I want you to notice this says -6. A negative turns into a positive, so I'm going to go ahead and write +6. And I'm going to do this one too. 2 times -3 is -6. Okay, so that just makes my life a whole heck of a lot easier trying to do that first, and then I will also simplify this. So, let's do, I'm just going to go ahead and write, this is 6 plus or minus the square root of something we don't know yet, divided by -6. So I'm rewriting my discriminant off to the side just so I can figure out what this is. Pause the video, see if you can get the same thing that I get. -6 squared, if you plug it into your calculator, you should get a positive number. If not, that means your calculator doesn't know how to do order of operations. So this is a positive 36. -4 times -3 times -1. So I have 3 negative numbers. I'm going to end with a negative number. It's going to be -12. 4 times 3 times 1 is 12. And then I've got 36 minus 12, which is 24. So 24 goes into my square root. Let's see. Well, 24 is not a perfect square, but maybe it can simplify. Okay, I'm also just going to go ahead and rewrite my fractions so that maybe I can, what's the word? Oh, I can cancel easier. So we're going to do the buddy system with 24. So it's 2 and 12, 2 and 6, 2 and 3. Okay, here's 2 2s. So a 2 comes out, and who's left over? 2 times 3, which is 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this 2 square root of 6. Okay, so when I am doing this, I would turn the 6 over negative 6 into a negative 1, and 2 over 6 is 1 over 3. Okay, but Khan Academy doesn't have that answer because they don't like that answer. I don't know why. It's really obnoxious, and I'm sorry. However, I'm going to show you what they're going to want, because if you do this, it is technically equivalent. All right, but so they want everything to have the same denominator, but as small as possible. So I can divide both of, like, everything by 2, right? So I can divide this by 2 and get 3, this by 2 and get 3, that by 2 and get 1, and this by 2 and get 3. I cannot, this square root of 6, I can't touch it. It's not going to change. It's like that till the end of the problem. Okay, so my final answer is, and these 3's are technically still negative because it is a negative 6. So I have 3 plus or minus. I don't have to put the 1. If you put the 1, that's fine, but they don't have it, so I don't want you to get confused. Okay, that's your answer. This equals x. Okay, this was a long video. I hope that it helped you. I'm sorry it was so long. These are just longer problems, so good luck. You won't have too many exercises this week.